Canada wrestling scene is hot right now. I can give you 22 reasons why. She's Canada's coolest wrestler. Maddison Miles is the afternoon attraction on Off the Top Rope Monday. I have no doubt she was the big attraction for UCW's Pro Wrestling's big show this past Saturday. Of course, we talk about it live on Off the Top Rope. You got Maddison Miles off the top rope. You got a sizzling Monday afternoon.
The Ropes Media. Tyrone Asbury. Yeah. Tyrone Asbury. Yeah. Every chance you get to hear us, you clear us. Just the time on the radio. My opinion's my opinion. Every time you hear me now moving out, they're on the stereos.
What's up, everybody? Monday afternoon. I'm going to say this. It's true. It is damn true. Off the top rope, instead of starting at 1 o'clock, 12:30, we are starting this party live here on the ropes because my live guest, of course, Canada, United States, worldwide. My live guest, you know who she is, dropping elbows everywhere she goes. The one, the only. I'm so freaking honored. Maddison Miles is in the house. Maddison, how you doing?
I am fantastic, Ty. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to finally be here. I'm sorry it took so long, but I'm very much looking forward to this interview today. So thank you for having me.
You know, Maddison, it's all good because as we talked about when you came on the show, like you got emails after emails, you're traveling here, you're traveling there, so much going on. That's understandable. But that's why you are here because, girl, you got so much going on. I don't know where to start, but I want to start by asking you, are you getting like just a laid back, chilled afternoon? Because it sounds like you don't get many of those anyway.
I am. To be fair, today and tomorrow aren't too bad. I have got quite a few interviews lined up today, but it's a relaxing day at home. That's all I've got to do is do interviews, so it's not too bad. I love talking to people, so it's easy. Tomorrow I get a nice day with my mom and dad, going to pick up my best friend about 2 hours away. And then it's back on the road again, a wrestling show back to England, and then on the road for 4 weeks straight after that. So,
well, I don't want to. I'm trying to. I guess I'm putting myself over. You got so many interviews today. Hopefully, the ropes will get like the high notch of you want to come back. Because, like I said, I'm gonna try my best to make and convert that into. Yeah, I think the rope is one. But anyway, I'm glad. I'm glad you're having a great afternoon.
Thank you.
I want to ask you first and foremost. You had a huge show on Saturday, and is your adrenaline rush like still going after Saturday, or you're like, I just need some like afternoon couch time?
No, honestly, Saturday was incredible. I mean, honestly, I haven't felt that way in so long. So I wrestled in my hometown, Halifax, Nova Scotia, first time in almost 5 years that I've wrestled there. I've wrestled not too far from there twice in 5 years, but in my hometown, the building that I was brought up in professional wrestling, I haven't been there in 5 years almost. So going to this building, the setup was all day, huge crew, fantastic crew, so many friends I haven't seen in so long, so many new relationships built, old relationships fixed up. It was a brilliant afternoon. And then the fans started coming in, and there was a VIP that was about 2 hours. We had Rob Van Dam on the show with us, so it was absolutely packed. Yeah. And there ended up being, after the doors had opened, there's about 500 people in the building, and it was just electric. So I was talking to my opponent, Charlie Hubley, for the match, and, we were a bit, I think I get a bit nervous, and I think we all do in some ways because you think, I haven't been here in 5 years. Am I still relevant? Do people care? Do people think I'm overrated? I'm like, okay, well, if all else fails, I'm heel turning on you and I'm going to beat you up for 20 minutes. So just prepare. If they hate me and they're mad that I'm back, I'm going to heel turn on you. I'll cut a promo. We'll be fine. We'll sort it out. And my opponent was like, I really don't think that's going to happen. And I was like, I'm just telling you, if it does happen, I've got a backup plan. Anyways, The feedback that I got at the merch table before the show even started was incredible. I know this is going to sound really cocky and arrogant, and I don't mean for it to, but I had two people come up to the merch table and cry because they hadn't seen me in so long, which was really weird, but really, really emotional. I had a friend from school that I went to school with who suffered with very severe autism that I hadn't seen in about 6 or 7 years. And they showed up to the show, and their presentation was a completely different person. And they were, you wouldn't even know that this person suffered with autism anymore. And anyway, my friend's mom was there, and she was crying because she was so happy. And I had seen so many people in this day that I hadn't seen in years. And the cool thing, I said to my dad, because my dad still goes to all these shows when I'm away from home. My dad was sat with me at the merch table, and we were looking at the row of people. So Rob Van Dam's lineup, they sold a lot of VIP tickets. For 2 hours, the lineup was the same size, wrapped all the way from the back of the venue to the door and out the door. Excuse me. And I said to my dad, you look at this lineup of wrestling fans, and I recognize over half of them because they're long-term dedicated wrestling fans that are here. So I knew over half the people in the lineup, even though it had been about 5 years since I'd wrestled in this city. Anyway, long story short, we have the match. I came out in my entrance, and it was literally just like magical, on fire. I don't remember the last time I had that much of an adrenaline rush. Like, I was buzzing. The crowd was so loud. The reaction was incredible. From what I can tell, people really enjoyed the match. My opponent was lovely to work with, nice and easy to work with. We had a really fun time. I did lose the match, unfortunately, but afterwards, I sat in the ring, and the reaction from everyone, I'm not gonna lie, I shed one or two tears in the ring. I just found it really emotional. And then when I got backstage, I went into the locker room alone, and I called my boyfriend, and I had a little cry to myself because it was so overwhelming, and it was just the few days. Like I said, I always say to people, I was a kid when I was growing up and wrestling around here, and none of these people know me as an adult. They all know me as 15-year-old Maddison Miles who's just trying to make it in the world, and the response and the reactions I got from these people. And, there were a bunch of little girls there who I remember. There's a group of them from when I started wrestling that were all, just shorter than my hips. And now they're all coming up to my height. I'm only 5'4", so I'm not the tallest person, but they're all like up to here on me now. And they were all like super emotional as well. And, it just felt like such a big weekend. And it makes you realize, like, even those moments when you go, oh my God, do these people still care? Am I still relevant? Honestly, the experience was impeccable. I was on such a high note that, like,
that's overwhelming. And Maddison, it really takes you back in perspective, thinking that wrestle fans, they don't forget. They miss somebody and they come out of blue and come back like you did. They'd be like, oh man, like we gotta go see Maddison. And like you said, you were feeling maybe was I missed? People think I'm overrated now. Everything you just put down, you're talking earlier, but they still know how you are. And wrestling fans, very smart. They love somebody. They'll love them to the core, and they still definitely love you. And you brought up a good point too, because you said that young Madison Miles and to the the young lady Madison Miles. I made this clip for you. I saw this on your Facebook, so I got to roll it because I thought it was really cool. So this is old school. So I'm guessing this is the same fan.
Yeah.
July 2017 to July of this year, and it's like, man, like you see that, it's like that's so crazy because it shows like how people love you from when they're young to older, and how your wrestling career started from back then until now. Like, man, you got it going on.
It's crazy, really. And the young lady in the photo with me, I've known her for about probably 3 years before that. So I've known her since 2014. And that first photo was I had taken I had taken my friend's child to a SmackDown show, or to Raw, sorry, and that's where that photo was. But you know, we were both so young, and now when I saw her on Saturday, that lady, she now she's a coach. She teaches kids how to sail, and you know, she's only, I think, 3 or 4 years younger than me. But I think how amazing that these, you know, when I was a kid and I was going to all these wrestling shows, all the wrestlers used to say, "Oh, I've known you since you were 5," like, you know, you're always getting older, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, whatever. But now I 100% have that same thing with all these fans that I'm like, I remember these guys as kids, you know, and now they're showing up to the shows where they're leaders and they're coaches and they're teaching these things and graduating high school. And honestly, it's insane. There's
So cool.
it sounds so cheesy, but there's no place like home. Friday night, excuse me. Friday night I wrestled in St. John, New Brunswick. And I used to wrestle in St. John all the time when I started wrestling. And again, same sort of reaction. The show only had about 250 people at it, but St. John hasn't had wrestling in a long time, so it's not super surprising. But the reaction was the same from people. You know, I used to wrestle out of Moncton, New Brunswick quite a bit, which is about an hour and a half from there. And we had a really strong local fan base. And so many people had traveled from Moncton to St. John. I was shocked. At how many people I recognized, and they were like, "Oh, we used to come see you in Moncton all the time." And I just the days of being home. There's these 3 shows in a row. I mean, I said to my boyfriend, if I had any doubts in myself before, I need to cut it out because you know we're so hard on ourselves all the time. And I'm like, you know, I just had the most incredible weekend, honestly.
That's a really cool thing. And you know, you brought up a really good point, is that you talk about how that you were young once and getting started on wrestling, but you're also paving the way for people who look up to you. So when you retire, which is a long way from now, when you retire, you're probably gonna be that next coach teaching the generation of tomorrow. So that's one thing you got to keep in your mind on that. You know, I can see you seriously being a badass coach one day. So I'm holding you to it. Like I said, we come back years from now and we're both all great, but I really think that that's going to be your calling, like being a good wrestling teacher.
Yeah, and to be honest, it might not be the absolute most skilled, but I love teaching people. I'm such a natural leader. I love to teach. And the big thing I take from it as well is that when I started wrestling, I was extremely unathletic. And I know what I needed to pull the best parts out of me that I could see. And recently I was helping somebody train, and my friends were like, you know, you're quite a good teacher. Like, we haven't thought of teaching it like that. And I was like, I know, but you know, these are the things that I needed when I was in that position. I needed the extra step. I needed to, you know, have something else to try before going right from A to B. You know, if that was too hard, I needed that step. And that's what I love to do with people. Don't get me wrong. We all know wrestling training is difficult and all that. But I love to teach, and I love to try to make things easier for people, to make the learning experience more enjoyable. So I hope that someday when I have the seniority and the ability to, you know, settle down, and I'd love to have a wrestling school and teach whenever that time is right.
If you ever do have your wrestling school, I'm just throwing this out there. What would you call it? You know, because there's wrestling schools, they have so many sizzling, flashy names.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
What would you call it?
You know what? I've literally never thought about it before. No one's ever asked me that question. So that's a good question. I don't know if I have an answer for you, but
you can come back later with that. But like I said, there's something.
I will do. No one's ever asked me that question. That's a good question, actually. I'll put some thought into it.
I want to say to everybody watching the Ropes Live this Monday afternoon, if you're at work, you're at home, you're doing whatever, put on the show right now, because the one and the only Maddison Miles is on Off the Top Rope Afternoon Attraction, because he's an attraction everywhere she goes in wrestling. Put on the ropes right now, because we are partying up this after freaking noon. I'm so excited. I got goosebumps. So because Maddison Miles is in the house. Now, Maddison, I want to say, of course, that, you know, you started wrestling in July of 2015, and it's been 6 years up until now that you've been doing this. So I want to give you a ropes round of applause for that, because, you know, when you look at that, and you, whatever you're doing, like with your boyfriend, family, do you think to yourself like, damn, man, I can't believe it's been this long? Has it like hit you yet, or you don't think about stuff like that?
let me tell you something really weird. This weekend I met a new wrestler who wrestled he wrestled, I think, for a year back in the day, but he just started properly training again and all that sort of thing. And I went to introduce myself to him. And he's like, hey, I saw you wrestle almost a decade ago. And at first I was like, oh, that wasn't me. And then I was like, I started wrestling in 2015. They're like, yeah, 2015, 7 years ago. And they're like, I guess that's almost a decade. And I was like, oh my God, that's almost a decade, But I was so thrown off because I was like, oh, I think you've got the wrong person. Like, I haven't been wrestling almost a decade. And then they were like, well, I was like, I only started in 2015. They're like, yeah, that's 7 years. That's not quite a decade, but almost. And I was like, oh my God, it's like, another 3 years from now and be a decade. I mean, that just feels that's crazy. I remember being 2 years in being like, oh my God, how am I ever going to get to that point?
I've asked a lot of guests this on the show. When you've been in wrestling as long as you have, is it like, does it feel like time's going by too fast, or being a wrestler, you don't really think about that? It's just enjoy the moment while it's there. Because I believe, Maddison, in that saying, tomorrow is never guaranteed because the world is crazy. Just freaking enjoy it. So how do you feel as a wrestler about that?
I don't think I appreciated enough pre-pandemic. I think I did appreciate it, but because I was so busy, like, I didn't stop to enjoy any of it. I think, in 2019, I wrestled 112 times in 10 different countries. So I was literally like, boom, 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 boom. Sorry, I think it was only 9 countries in that year, but still, it was like, boom, 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 go, 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 and I look back at that and think, oh my gosh, like, we're not to that point yet again because of the pandemic, but I just wish that I could have slowed down and enjoyed it just a bit more. I wouldn't have changed anything and I would still do that. But I think you just get so caught up sometimes with saying, okay, well, I'm only going to focus on what show I've got next. Okay. And now this show's over. Now I can focus on this one. Now this show's over. I'm going to focus on my podcast. Now the podcast is done. I'm going to focus on this. And that's how it felt for so long. And I'm trying really hard to get better at stopping and slowing down and enjoying it. So like you said, these days are never promised, and these good, these moments that we're in, we might never ever get again. And I think it's so important to take them all for what they're worth, and I think the pandemic especially has proved that, we're not promised anything. We're not guaranteed the freedom of tomorrow to travel and keep doing what we're doing. So, we're slowly getting back into that now, and I'm so grateful for it. But I'm trying to be really, really careful of how I manage it to try to make sure that everything that I do gets the attention that it deserves. Hasn't quite proved 100% successful yet, but we're getting there.
Now, Maddison, you brought up a good point for what I do, in wrestling podcasting. You said you got to get ready for this show, get ready for this podcast, get ready for this show on the podcast. Now, from which your experience with other wrestlers, do you mind that? And do other wrestlers, do they not like that because it's like, I got a podcast coming up, wrestling show? Like, how it sounds crazy because just you talking about, it's like, man, I'm pulling in my hair out. I don't have any hair, but that sounds like it's a little crazy.
Yeah, it can be. I think the only time that it comes into play, and this is a kind of, from what I can tell, a rather like old school thing, but if I'm wrestling somebody, like, I'll watch their matches maybe the morning that I wrestle them, but I don't normally have time to study them for a week in advance and that sort of thing. Where sometimes I meet people and they're like, oh, I've been watching your matches for like the last week and blah, 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 and that's great. And I really, really have so much respect for people who do that. But I think when you are used to being so busy, wrestling different people all the time, that, like, for me, it's very old school that I don't text people and say, hey, can we plan a match? What spots do you do? Anything like that. Unless it's like, unless it's a really big match and I know the person personally and say, oh, do you have any like cool ideas that we can think about? I personally am very much old school in the way of, we'll show up on the day, we'll find out what the promoter wants from us, and we'll sort it out. I believe that I'm creative enough and whoever I'm wrestling will be creative enough that we really put consideration into it in the moment. Now, I know a lot of people sometimes will struggle with that, especially newer people, because sometimes you still get messages from really new wrestlers going, oh, what moves do you do? What's your finish? Do you want to plan this? Do you want to plan that? Whereas I was brought up in a way of, not necessarily calling on the fly, because I personally don't call matches on the fly, but in the way of your opponent can change last minute. You never know who you're wrestling. You never know what the outcome's going to be. So, and when I plan my matches, I work backwards anyways. I base it off what my finish is, and I go from there. And that's how I plan the whole matches around that. So I personally don't like to put too much thought into it. Now, I do like to have, like I said, the morning of the show, I'll have a look at who I'm wrestling, and I'll watch a few of their matches and be like, oh, well, clearly they do a cannonball, a German suplex, and I don't know, crossbody from the top rope, because they do it all the time. And those are the things that I focus on. So I think sometimes people find it challenging, but that is personally how I take it. But again, I think that's from being so busy in the past that if you're watching, when do you have time to watch a whole bunch of footage for 3 weeks leading up to a match? Like, you don't get that time. So
and I know you being the veteran that you are, I'm sure there's been times where you got your sight set to wrestle this person this night, but they can't make it, injury or something, the card's subject to change, and another person comes in. Is that a moment where you're like, oh shit, damn? But I'm sure you're probably used to that. I mean, like, is that, I guess, can that be crazy, Maddison, for just depending on who the person is, where, stuff has to change because of an injury or somebody can't make it?
Yeah, and I think that's all part of being a good wrestler. I think you need to be flexible. I think you need to be able to adapt to any situation. Funny enough, this past weekend on Saturday, I wasn't supposed to wrestle Charlie Hubley originally. I was supposed to wrestle a wrestler named Moon Miss, and they ended up breaking their foot, I believe, or ankle, some part from their knee down of their leg. But that was only about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, maybe. So funny enough, because I know them, I had messaged them and said, hey, like, is there anything specific that you'd like to do in our match? Because it'll be like a kind of big show. But funny enough, it got changed. And, I remind myself, I'm like, that's why I don't do that. Because, it's really unfortunate, obviously, that they hurt themselves. And, it's absolutely heartbreaking because I was very excited to wrestle them. But, that's a perfect reason as to why, why don't get too many hopes up, because you might plan a match where I'm the big girl in a match wrestling a really tiny babyface girl, and then the person switches and all of a sudden I'm the babyface girl and I'm bigger and the heel is smaller and whatever, and everything changes. So until I'm in the locker room with my opponent, I take it from there.
And I would think that this happen a lot too in Wrestle Madison, where you're supposed to wrestle this person, so they can't make it, so they bring in somebody new who you never wrestled before. In a lot of ways, does this happen in wrestling where you may, get to know the new person quite well? And is that a good term where you can start networking with the person because they may know promoters and may want to book you? So does that happen a lot where that can be a good thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think any opportunity to wrestle someone new is really good. One of my favorite parts about wrestling is meeting new people. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, do you know anyone from California? And I'm like, oh yeah, I know blank, 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 and then, that's how all your connections are made. And that's kind of how I've prided myself on a lot, especially the early years of my career, was like the networking that I did. And to me, that was the most important, just about the friendships and the connections I made with people. And for example, like I go to Cauliflower Alley Club every year, and I will spend from 8 a.m. until 5 a.m. networking and go to sleep for 3 hours. And then, but to me, it doesn't feel like networking. It's just talking to people, getting to know people, learning from people, hearing their stories. Like, I'll get to sit at a bar with Kevin Jeffries and Ross Hart and, and Vance Nevada and all these really, really great people, and Ron Hutchinson. And I just think, it doesn't matter what's happening right now. I'm sitting with all these people who have so much knowledge, and they're just feeding my brain and telling me everything good I'm doing, everything bad I'm doing, all the things I could do better, and then actually I talk to all of these people on a regular basis, and, I form these friendships with them. And actually, whether or not that does anything for me in terms of like wrestling and bookings and that sort of thing, I create these amazing relationships with people. And that's my favorite part about wrestling.
You've created so many great relationships, but I'm gonna roll this clip because you've also created a lot of memories for yourself. And it happened this past Saturday. One of your favorites, of course, I had to put it up. Boom, Twitter feel good moment is that this past Saturday, you have Sonny Kiss on there and Rob Van Dam. And man, I love this picture because that shit went him back in the day. So
Yeah.
Did you talk to him, pick his brain or whatever? I mean, I was like, man, I got to plug this on the show for her because you can't beat that.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, these are the surreal moments. To be honest, he was really, really busy at the show, so I didn't really have time to pick his brain. But we did have a quick chat about it when we first said hello to each other and that sort of thing. And for me, those are the moments that I think are so cool. Another one really similar to that was when I wrestled Victoria back in 2017. And I remember sitting at the Impact Wrestling tapings. And me and my dad and mom used to go to Orlando and all the time, like at least once a year, and go to Impact. And they were always doing meet and greets at that time and kind of fan fests and that sort of thing. And I always remember being like, please come out, please come out, please come out, because I loved Victoria,
Yeah.
And then actually here I am, whatever that would have been like 5-6 years later, wrestling her. And those are the moments that just come so full circle. Or, this weekend, Robbie McAllister was on all 3 shows with me. And I was saying to him, like, I remember in like 2007, 2008, lining up in a mall in Cape Breton, waiting to have his autograph. And, now I'm sat here driving him around all weekend from show to show, and that sort of thing. And they're just the most surreal moments. They're so weird, but so incredible.
I'm so proud of what Canada Wrestling has built because first and foremost, I gotta get my ass a passport and come to Canada because I've been wanting to come see Canada Wrestling for so long, and I'm sure down here in the U.S. we're missing out. And I mean, you got the Hart family, I gotta say you got the the Miles family. You guys, I mean, I'm telling you, one day y'all will be up there. Y'all up there now, but y'all will be up there with the Harts at Canada Wrestling. What am I, Maddison? What am I missing out on? Because I got to get up there. So
I think the great thing is wherever you go in Canada, there's something that kind of stays pretty consistent, and that's the old school style. For the most part, in all honesty, people tried to keep kayfabe in this country for, I think, a little bit longer than everyone else did. But that's how, I always describe myself as an old school. I try to be as much of an old school wrestler as I can be with a bit of a new school twist. And I think when you go to different parts of Canada, like if you want to see pretty much the indie style of Canada, then I will go to Ontario. But if you want to see the kind of old school style, you want to go more Alberta or the Maritimes, because that's obviously, Stampede Wrestling, and then everyone from the Maritimes as well. Maritimes is very, very old school. But then again, people do obviously their jobs to keep it fresh and keep it interesting and all that. But compared to a lot of places I've been in the world, very, very old school. And then you have kind of the Vancouver area, which dabbles in a little bit more indie. But I think for me personally, from my experiences wrestling, I've wrestled in every Canadian province. And I think the thing that stays the same is the old school style. So it's very different, but it's I think it's well worth kind of watching and well worth the trip for sure.
Yeah, I gotta get up there. It's definitely sooner or later. I'm coming up to Canada to see some good old fashioned old school wrestling, which I love.
Yeah.
I grew up on that. Being a fan, first and foremost, the most important thing.
Well, for example, we have a venue here called the Halifax Forum, and you had people like the Beast and Leo Burke and Cuban Assassin and all these kind of legends. And to this day, you get people come to wrestling shows going, "Oh, my granddad used to take me to the Halifax Forum." Blah, blah, blah. And then funny enough, this weekend, same thing. This woman came up to me with her granddaughter, and her granddaughter came up for an autograph. And she was like, my grandma used to take me to the Halifax Forum to watch wrestling. And now it's my turn as a grandmother to, do it myself. And I just think, our territory is so consistent and old. And again, it goes with the same thing I said to you about, you look in the lineup and you see the same people you saw 5 years ago, because the storylines and the, Maritime wrestling fans really care, and it's so cool.
And the biggest thing of all is that when you started, like I said, back in 2015, is there something different about wrestling from when you started that doesn't exist now, and you hope it kind of gets back to that from when you started? I mean, because wrestling changes. It had life changes. So, but looking at it from a wrestling standpoint, is there something that you see that wasn't going down when you were starting out back in the day?
I think, I don't think necessarily to the point of the question, but I think the things that I miss a little bit is I felt like the kayfabe was a bit stronger
Yeah.
Back then, I think not massively because it's always been, you know, quite unkayfabe now, in the last few years. But I think things were a little bit more kayfabed. I think the one trouble sometimes that wrestling fans will have is that they get so into it that they're almost not a fan anymore, which is fair. That's how I got into the business. So absolutely fair enough. And if that wasn't the case, I wouldn't be here. But um, I think sometimes that takes away the ability of the people to really enjoy the stories for everything it's worth. Of course, they appreciate it in a lot of different ways. They're like, oh, actually, that wrestler's my friend, But back in the day, it wouldn't have been that way. It would have been, oh my God, this wrestler is a superstar,
Yeah.
and, I'd be lucky to be their friend. Now it's like, oh, that's my friend, and everyone's friends with these people. And I think it's great. I think it's great for all the different reasons. And it's not a knock on wrestling fans in the slightest. But I just do miss those elements of kayfabe because I know that, with the kayfabe came those really magical moments. And now there are different magical moments, but for very, very different reasons. So
I guess it's just wrestling fans, sometimes hard to satisfy wrestling fans, but
yeah.
I guess like you were pretty much breaking it down that wrestling's changed and just be thankful still here and just deal with it and take it with it as it is. I mean, but kayfabe is definitely sorely missing everything. Now, Maddison, you talked about that it's kind of like if a theater standpoint, bringing theater into wrestling. Now, you talked about this. We were, going over notes of the show. Like, I'm actually confused about that. It sounds really cool. So even break it down to me as well as the fans about theater and wrestling, because I was like, oh, that kind of sizzles. I like that.
All right. So my partner Charlie and I, we are part of a new production called Mythos Ragnarok. So this is based in London, England, created by Ed Gamester. There is a crew of about 8 of us with all of our understudies as well. And what Ed has done is he has written a program based off Greek mythology where he took a bunch of wrestlers and one actor, taught the wrestlers how to act and the actor how to wrestle. And we combined wrestling, theater, and stunts into a show. I say we. I can't take we can't take any credit for it. It was Ed's design. But basically, what we have done is we put on what is classed as like a theater performance. So the way my dad describes it really funny. My dad goes, "Think dinner theater without the dinner, and add the wrestling." So it's a funny way to put it, but I think that is quite a funny thing. So it's treated like theater, lots of lines, lots of acting, but then so as I said, based off Greek mythology, and then instead of battles, we have wrestling matches, but instead of there's no referee, there's no counting. It's like if you roll off the stage, it's classed as you've either lost or forfeit or you give up or whatever. And then we have people on our cast who are trained to do sword fighting. We have someone on our cast who is trained to be set on fire. And then most recently, Charlie and I completed our Warrior Masterclass Phase 1. So that is Phase 1 of 4, where basically we learn how to do sword fighting, use spears, unarmed combat for TV, and that sort of thing. Phase 1 is the easiest, obviously, of all the phases, but everyone starts somewhere, so we're working towards our Class 4 qualification. But yeah, and so basically, through doing Mythos Ragnarok, we have recently, our group has been the first group of professional wrestlers to ever be invited to perform at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which hosts over 3 million people every single year. So, I mean, that's a massive opportunity for all of us. And, you do all the wrestling good stuff. And then at the end of the show, everyone comes out and they do a proper theater ending of bowing. And so you get a lot of extra kind of appreciation that sometimes you don't always get in wrestling, especially when you're working the smaller shows and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's looking to be a huge deal. So I fly back from Canada on the 31st. I work 2 12-hour days on the 1st and 2nd. And then after my work on the 2nd, we drive directly up to Scotland and we're there for 25 days straight performing every single day. So I'm so excited. That's the stuff that I live for. It'll be challenging, but I love a good challenge. And there's nothing that I love more than being on the road wrestling every single day.
That's what I'm talking about. Like I said, keep doing what you're doing. Like I said, the pedal to the metal, keep doing that. And Maddison, when this becomes huge and big, I mean, because like I said, I'm chopping at the bit to know more about it, and I know the fans are too watching the show. When will it be official that we can watch it and really where it'll really blow up like from a point where you can
Well,
watch it?
we're hoping that Fringe will kind of be a big turning point. We have got some videos of it, but in our previous performances, we've tried different camera angles, different camera crews, and that sort of thing to try to work out what we think is best for the lighting to really showcase it. Because, for example, my mother-in-law comes to a lot of our wrestling shows, and she's a big wrestling fan. But at the end of our Ragnarok performance, she was in the audience crying because she was like, "This is so surreal. It's so cool." So we try to work out how to capture those moments the best that we can. So we're hoping that through Fringe, we'll get enough footage from our 25 days to put together a really strong video package. It already has a few video packages, but we're looking for that really consistent footage. And obviously, being there for 25 nights, we'll get an idea of what footage works best and what we need and all of that sort of stuff. And, I know that we have been Ed's been in talks trying to write a few more scripts. So we're potentially looking at having multiple shows running on the same days at the same times. But obviously different casts working as the same characters, as well as like different stories. So this one is based off of Odin's perspective, all based off Greek mythology, based off Odin's perspective. And then he's looking at writing some from other people's perspectives, as well as like, for example, we do the first half of the show, go into the interval, and then in the second half of the show, but we're looking at writing one that's based off, well, what happens in the interval that makes the end of the show what it is, because it's obviously like crunched down. And we have had a few inquiries actually from people who kind of run theater productions in Canada saying, oh, like, what would be the chances of how much would it cost to bring the show over and tour it and that sort of thing. So, I guess the thing is that we're trying to stay on top of it because we know it's going to be a big deal. And, trying to make sure that we've got all of our ducks in a row so that if, once people start trying to do the same thing, that we can kind of hold on tight to it because it's a massive deal for us. So it's so exciting. It's magical.
I'm definitely excited. I got to say, a theater treat from Maddison Miles, and like I said, fans definitely stay tuned for this. And like I said, I'm going to be following you too, on social media when this starts to really blow up because it's definitely getting really, really big. Maddison, you're no stranger to traveling all around the world. I saw the list. As always, I was impressed by this. So, what's the attraction about each of these places? USA, Canada. I mean, you see the list on the screen here. I mean, go through all of them. What's just one thing that's attractive about for you wrestling in the country?
Okay, so I'm gonna go off the top of my head because that's the way I remember them. Funny enough, so like I said, Canada. I love the old school. I love the dedication of the fans. The fan base is so consistent. That is definitely my favorite part about Canada. Mexico, I thought was really interesting. The thing that I love about Mexico is that the fans, I feel like, have such a standard of wrestling. And I feel like they have a really different sort of appreciation for it. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't really know how to describe it. But it just felt different. You could tell the fans were really invested, but it didn't feel like kind of old school Canada invested. It was very much, what's a good way? I don't really know the right words to describe it, to be honest. I think, as I said, they just have different expectations and different kind of views on wrestling in general. So, I mean, and not to mention the culture and the scenery. I had some of the most amazing food while I was in Mexico. I was treated so well. USA, the thing, I've only wrestled, I think, 3 or 4 different places in America, but the thing that I love is how unique those 3 shows have been. I think 3 or 4 shows have been, and when I think about them, I think, actually, they've all been so different. And, I've wrestled for like Limitless on the East Coast, and then I've wrestled in California and Vegas on the West Coast. And I think even if I think of all of those shows, they're really, really different. But I had some of my funnest matches. There. And I remember when I worked for Limitless, like the crowd was on fire. I'd never met them before. I was 18 years old, terrified for my life to be wrestling a Limitless show. But, the crowd was absolutely on fire. And then I think, you look at some of the Vegas shows, and I didn't work Freak Show Wrestling, but I helped out at those shows. And then I've worked for Versus Pro Wrestling, and I think they're all just so used to having really fun, interesting matches. And I think that's the thing I loved about it is like there's no they love to see some weird stuff. So the UK, my favorite thing about wrestling in the UK is the style. It's very, very different. I didn't find it massively hard to adapt, but at the same time, I tried to wrestle very Canadian style because I know that that's what sets me apart and makes me different. However, watching and learning about British wrestling, I find so fascinating. The storylines, the way that they run, like submission matches, for example. Just they do so many kind of different different things. I need you to just plug my laptop in. I'm so sorry. I just noticed that my charger fell out. So just bear with me 2 seconds. 2 seconds.
We're definitely jamming it up here on the ropes on this Monday afternoon. But yeah, like I said, it's traveling all over the world. Like I said, Maddison Miles style. That's the way to do it. So traveling worldwide. Hey, definitely can't beat that. Traveling the world to wrestle in front of thousands of fans. That's the way Maddison Miles is definitely doing it. So, and like I said, definitely. As I said before, top of the show, anybody has any questions for Maddison, like I said, send the comment, and I'll be glad to read it here on the air, here on Off the Top Rope Monday afternoon, because this is, like I said, a Monday afternoon attraction here on Off the Top Rope with your boy, Todd Asbury. So, and but yeah, definitely a good afternoon to be watching Off the Top Rope live here on the show.
Whew, I am so sorry about that.
Sorry.
I was working downstairs earlier today and left my charger down there, so my apologies.
Nah, it's all good. Like I said, I'll bring the clip back up for you because, like I said, these are some wonderful places.
6, 7, 8. Okay, so then the next one on the list that I go by would be Wales. So Wales was another really cool one. I didn't spend a lot of time in Wales. I was there for a day and a half, and we had meet and greets to do, and a lot of setup and a lot of tear down. But Wales is another place, when I think about that venue, that the crowd was like insane. I wrestled 3 times when I was in Wales. I did 3 matches on one show. And the crowd were behind me for like every second of it. And I was a heel. So, behind me in the right sort of ways. And yeah, as I said, I can't say too much if I'm perfectly honest, because I didn't spend a lot of time kind of outside of our venue. So yeah, but the crowd there was really, really cool. I haven't wrestled in Yemen. I think that is probably, I'm trying to work out what flag that is mistaken for. That one would probably... I'll skip to Austria first. So Austria is somewhere that I work all women's shows all the time. And their fan base is so kind of loyal and reliable. And the thing I love about Austria is the scenery. I think that every time I get to drive through, I don't know why it sounds rude, but I don't think it's not even anything like crazy special, but it's just so pretty. And I find it really peaceful and really enjoyable to wrestle there. And the fact that I get to go and do these all women's shows, like the crews that I'm with, are always so, so nice. Then I wrestled in the Netherlands. That was one of my all-time favorites because me and Charlie got to cycle through Amsterdam, and it was so pretty. And that's something we don't get to do a lot. We don't always get to take our time to enjoy things. But we had an afternoon flight out, and so we were able to spend the entire morning cycling around, trying food, and it was amazing. That's one of my favorite places I've ever traveled to. Yeah, I know, right? Germany's another good one. Germany, the thing that's amazing, and forgive me for anyone who's listening that goes, oh my God, that's not how you pronounce the venue. I really struggle to pronounce it. But in Germany, we wrestle at the legendary venue, the Schützenplatz Arena. I think that's how you pronounce it. I always pronounce it wrong, and then everyone makes fun of me. I can't pronounce it like the British people do. But it's like a legendary venue. They've had wrestling there for years and years and years. So just being in the venue, saying, oh my God, I wrestled in this historic place is incredible. It's so cool. And again, fan base there is so loyal. I get regular messages from fans in Germany and regular kind of merchandise sales and that sort of thing, which you don't get in a lot of places, like not the consistency anyway. I mean, that's incredible. And then one of my favorite things about Germany is that when we stay in this like little village and it looks like it's out of a storybook. It's fantastic. Yeah. It's so cool. So then I wrestled in Northern Ireland. In Northern Ireland, I don't know. I wasn't in Northern Ireland very long. Again, it was like in at nighttime or in at dinner time before the show, out the next morning at like 7 a.m. So I honestly don't have a lot to say about that one. But I said to someone in an interview today that when we were driving to the venue, there were so many farms of sheep. And I'm like, we have sheep in Canada. We have sheep in England. But like, I remember on the drive there was just farms and farms and farms of sheep. And I was like, there's so many of them. So many of them. Like, where do they all come from? And why do we need so many sheep? But hey ho, there they are. And then
I think was on the list was England.
Yeah, so I think England and Scotland. So England, like I said, the style. It's the style of wrestling and learning about the style. Scotland, when I went to Scotland, it was the castles and the cathedrals. Just incredible. I'm not going to lie. I'm not really like a buildings kind of person, not really into like architecture and that sort of thing. But the castles and the cathedrals that were there were insane. We were only there again for a really quick turnaround time, like in one night, out the next morning. But we drove. So we drove through the city, and it was, I think as well as like the mountain, like not really mountains, I guess, but the hills and the scenery to get there was really intense. Super cool.
Like I said, it's just like all the world traveling experience, meeting people. Like you said earlier on top of the show, that's what makes wrestling so cool. You know, all these fans from different countries and everything. It's like really badass. At one place, Maddison, hopefully one day you can come there because I'm very familiar with it. And I grew up maybe 20 minutes from there. Good old Philadelphia. One day, hopefully Maddison Miles will come to see a brotherly love, you know, and
absolutely. And I love you. America is the place that I wish that I kind of had done more of in the earlier years. I think with America, it's really touch and go, obviously, because of the borders, and it's quite hard as a wrestler from Canada to be coming to America. But it's definitely in my books. I have a really big appreciation for American wrestling, and I think there's so much of it. And yeah, I really want to be a part of it. So hopefully it doesn't take too much longer to do so.
Yeah. Well, that time comes, like I said, put on your list. Philadelphia. Yeah. So, but definitely that happens. Like I said, definitely let the ropes know. And like I said, because you'll Philly fans don't play. Like I said, I'll say this: they either don't like you or they love you. So that's pretty much the way it is.
Yeah.
Maddison, this is your first time on the ropes, and this next question, I don't know if I'm gonna try to stump you, but it's a question that really gonna make you think. So you ready for the segment?
I think so.
All right.
Damn, Ty. That's good.
Right. The question is, all right, you, of course, the great Maddison Miles, versus for the one night in Canada from somebody from AEW. The question is now, what would the tagline be of the match? Of course, describing the feud, because a good tagline does help a match.
Oh no, this is a hard question from AEW. Oh my god, I don't know. This is such an on-the-spot question. Let me reverse the question. Do you have an idea of one? You must have thought about it.
Yeah, I thought about it. Honestly, I think you and Britt Baker would be good.
I'd love to wrestle Britt Baker. I think she is probably one of the best, if not the best, women wrestlers in the world right now.
I think you either you or her. I think you or Thunder Rose would be badass.
Britt Baker would be very, very cool.
Yeah. Well, it's like, yeah, you and her, because y'all got two different. I mean, like I said, you're like you're like the blue chipper, like I said, badass. She's like the role model, Dennis, like kind of snobby, and I think that'd be a good like thing right there. So I thought of her when I was writing it, but like I said, I think you and Britt would be
Yeah,
be
yeah,
so.
she's one of the top people on my list. I'd love to wrestle. So cool.
Yeah. Second choice, I guess, would probably be like if I had to pick three, of course, number one, you and Britt, Thunder Rosa B2, or you and Tony Storm. I think that'd be good. So
Yeah. Tony Storm is incredible as well. To be fair, they're all incredible.
right.
But yeah, hopefully someday.
It's gonna happen. It's definitely gonna happen. Now, Maddison, not gonna let you down because I put it on the graphic for you. You got so much coming up, and I want you to slam and promote this thing like crazy. Because, like I said, I put the little hands down and they're clapping for you. Like I said, the cauliflower in September, Maddison, just slam and promote. You got so much coming up. Just let everybody know, like, you got a lot of coming up.
Absolutely. So the last 3 days I've wrestled all around Nova Scotia. This Wednesday I am wrestling in Bridgewater, Nova Scotia, and I get 2 more days with my family, and then I am back to England. I do work as a suicide crisis prevention in a suicide crisis prevention team for my shoot job. I'm there for 12-hour days all the time. So I have 2 days, and then I'm in Scotland for 25 days straight, wrestling all the time. And then I'm home for 2.5 weeks. And then I'm heading to Las Vegas and California. I can't release any extra details kind of about where I will be seen yet. But I will be doing a few shows while I'm there. I am so honored and so excited to be receiving the Rising Star Award for Cauliflower Alley Club. To be honest, never really thought it would even be a possibility at the moment. But it is truly an honor. And every year I go to CAC and just soak up every single ounce of knowledge that I can get from every person who's around. So, you know, I just hope that I can do them proud in being their award winner this year. And I am so excited to see all of these other amazing people honored around me as well.
You got legends on there. Like I said, you're the legend. You got Jerry Lawler, Jacqueline, Midnight Express. You got Jeff Jarrett up there. I mean, Kevin Sullivan, Maddison. You're on a poster of legends. So, and like
I mean, and how that's just incredible as it is. You know, you think just little old me. How do I end up on a poster with all of these absolutely incredible historic names? You know,
but it takes about number one, you being a good person, loving the business, humble. And it takes all that stuff. And, you know, you said it. I don't know how, you know, I'm on here receiving this award, but I can't sing worth a damn. So I'm going to just sing the song a little bit. What's the saying goes? Don't stop believing. So,
absolutely.
That's real, the honest truth. So, but I think the Scotland thing's going to be badass, like I said. And I had to make sure I had to put that on the show because Ty, you're like, Ty, we got to talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
But most important, that you got a lot coming up. But the biggest question of all, Maddison, before you leave the ropes, from 1 to 10, would you ever come back on Off the Top Rope again?
100%. It's been a fantastic interview. Some really creative, good questions. Sorry, my answers aren't top notch, but I've loved every second of it. Honestly, it's great. So I will 100% come back.
It was top notch, as top notch as can be. And Maddison, I will say first and foremost is that you're on the ropes. You know, I'm proud of you. Keep doing what you're doing. Like I said, I mean, Scotland, be safe, have fun. And like I said, for Vegas, like I said, I've never been to Vegas. I got to get to Vegas, but enjoy Vegas and just.
Maybe you should go to Vegas.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, don't never say never. But most importantly, like I said, just keep doing you. The fans love you. I love you. And you got all support in the world from the whole wrestling world. And like I said, hey, just keep dropping elbows, girl. So.
That's a little drop won't fix. But to everybody listening, thank you so much for your support. I love you all very much. You can catch me on my Instagram, social media of Maddison.Miles, Facebook, Maddison Miles Pro Wrestler. Really interestingly, my YouTube's got over 30,000 followers or subscribers, sorry. And there's a lot of maritime wrestling history on there. There's everything from the time I started wrestling in 2015 until now. Anything that's pretty much been on video is on my YouTube channel, as well as lots and lots of maritime wrestling history on there as well. There's a couple matches where you can witness my concussion. That's got 7 million views on YouTube. And then if you're interested in merchandise, you can always hit up Maddison Miles Big Cartel. And those orders will be shipped out as soon as possible. But again, for everyone listening, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate everyone's continued support.
You know, Maddison Miles, she's just so great that she actually just ended the show of Off the Top Rope because she said it all those great things. She was on the great podcast Off the Top Rope. Maddison Miles was live on Off the Top Rope this Monday afternoon. Like I said, check out next what she's doing. I'm your boy Ty Asbury. Love yourself. God bless. Love God. We are out of here. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank
Peace
you.
out.
The Ropes Media. Tyrone Asbury.